Prepare yourself. China won't hesitate to make its move while the Indian economy is in turmoil. Hi, and welcome to the Financial Argument Channel. There's none so blind as they won't see. Of course, there are reasons I start my videos with quotes all the time, and choose a quote from the Irish author of The Giant Gulliver, Jonathan Swift, for this video. If you think the collapsing Indian economy is none of our business in the US, or you simply think this will mean a larger supply of call center employees, then you're totally wrong. It may be too late, but there are those who are aware of the seriousness of the situation. While most eyes were focused on test results in Washington, the only subject the Secretary of State focused on was China. A few days ago in Tokyo, the foreign ministers of the alliance known as Quad, or Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, QSD, I think its name must be Timid Quad, which was formed against China and includes the United States, India, Japan, and Australia, had an urgent meeting. Before we dive into the details of this anti-China emergency meeting, let's take a look at the current economic situation. As I presented evidence of in the last video about China, China started the final stages of its plan. Their first move will undoubtedly be against the collapsing Indian economy. China won't hesitate, because as I will explain in detail in the next few minutes, India was chosen as the power to oppose China, along with a few other countries, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region. Building a plan on a country like India that will never be able to compete with China was a completely wrong economic and political strategy. And the fact that the Indian authorities gladly accept the role of a stooge is a great betrayal of India's economic future. Of course, I'm not making the crazy recommendation that India should ally with China. Nobody would allow such a thing anyway. However, India will be the country most affected by all the ugliness taking place in the Asia-Pacific by allowing the plan against China to be built on it. The part of this ridiculous plan of India versus China that should worry us is that China, which will easily knock out its paper giant opponent in the first round, will gain the increased self-confidence and ability to freely enact the next moves of its plan. It'll be an economic disaster for us, and especially for those who are not sufficiently prepared. It's also a pity that my warnings about the impending danger in my last video about China were not understood. In the comments, some people accused me of pushing American propaganda, while others insisted I was making Chinese propaganda. Some even claimed stranger things, even though I've used my videos for years to fight against what you claim I'm propagating. It's weird that the comments on the same video contradict each other, but the fact that some of my viewers truly realize the only propaganda made here is the ugly propaganda of truth is a sign that I'm doing the right thing. Since the first months of 2020, which has been a terrible year for all of us as the world's economies collapse, somehow China has bounced back stronger than before. When I follow the money and see that, at the end of the day, China is the only country that benefits from everything, there's no reason not to point my finger at China. One of the reasons I'm pointing my finger at China is that its closest border rival, India, has been the most damaged. India's recent economic situation is the worst in the world. The Indian economy experienced its first contraction in 40 years, with the GDP falling 23.9%, according to data released by the National Statistical Office. All the wheels of the Indian economy have practically stalled, and every economic field has been hit hard. There was a 47% decrease in hotels, communication, and transportation activities, which will be very difficult to recover from. Indian manufacturing shrank 39.3%. On top of that, many production facilities have closed, with more shuttering their doors every day, according to the news. India is the world's largest market for motorcycles and scooters. More than 17 million were sold last year alone. Of course, this isn't a surprise when you consider not only the heavy traffic of Indian cities, but also the poor condition of many roads, particularly in rural areas. One of the factories closing is the Harley Davidson factory. The company announced in a statement that it will almost completely end its activities in the country. This company's decision to withdraw from the world's largest motorcycle market is an important sign of India's future economic apocalypse. The figures for India's economy show a dire situation, with millions of homeless and people living in tents. Construction, which should be one of India's most important investment issues, shrank 50.3%. The Indian banking sector, on the other hand, is already undergoing a major collapse due to the toxic loans it's accumulated so far. In July, Shaktikanta Das, governor of the Reserve Bank of India, admitted that Indian banks would suffer massive erosion. Many people are no longer able to repay their bank loans, and the trillion-rupee hole in Indian banks is growing day after day. In addition to rising unemployment and poverty, the Indian healthcare system is in shambles. Doctors, medical equipment, and intensive care beds are currently in short supply at Indian hospitals, and authorities are struggling to cope with the unprecedented health crisis. The rapid spike in infections upset the healthcare system, which was already inadequate and characterized by unequal access and services. This information, in my opinion, is enough to make the collapse of India's economy clear. Most importantly, you should remember that there are millions of angry people going through all this. As I said at the beginning of the video, if you see all this as a problem for just India, regardless of whether you think I'm spouting American or Chinese propaganda, you are making a huge mistake. You don't understand China or its plans, and when things start to affect you personally, it'll be too late. If we recall President Trump's visit to India in February and the alliance statements he emphasized in his speech to more than 100,000 people at the new cricket stadium in Ahmedabad, it's very clear who India is waiting for help from. Unfortunately, this probably isn't going to happen. Things are already getting really ugly here, and there's bound to be significantly more chaos in November. Although many Indians are convinced that it will be the world's newest powerhouse, I beg them to please wake up from their dreams. If I have Indian viewers watching this video, please don't get me wrong. I absolutely do not underestimate India. India is one of the world's largest economies, and along with China, one of the world's most populous countries. But here we are talking about a giant that India cannot handle. It'll be knocked out in the first round due to its economic turmoil. Comparing all the economic and military data for China and India in this video would be a huge waste of time, and is also completely unnecessary. There are many reasons why this giant that America fed and deployed against the Soviets has grown so much. It took a long time for the rest of the world to realize that China was not sleeping. It was merely pretending to. This prevented the necessary actions from being taken for so long that it'll be difficult for things to turn in our favor. Returning to the details of the Quad meeting in Tokyo, Pompeo's statements were quite interesting. One of Trump's most ferocious hawks on China, Pompeo's statements targeted not only alliance countries, but also other Asia-Pacific countries. Pompeo called on alliance countries to increase cooperation, saying a united defense against the Chinese Communist Party's exploitation, corruption, and coercion was critical on every front. As far as I understand from Pompeo's statements, he's complaining that other countries are showing weakness in dealing with growing Chinese influence and do not take the situation seriously enough. While the U.S. is dealing with its own problems today and will be dealing with even greater problems soon, Pompeo doesn't want to give China any more space to take action. But the most important detail is that despite Pompeo's calls for unity and a forceful response to the Chinese threat, the other Quad representatives were far more reserved in their comments. The reason for their reluctance is that China responds very harshly without hesitation to any action taken against it. Due to the strength it holds economically, China can inflict a lot of damage on any country perceived as taking a hostile position. In my next financial argument video, I will talk about how to build stronger alliances that can work against China's weaknesses, instead of relying on these reluctant countries. Although President Trump's stance on certain issues can be criticized, I cannot blame him regarding the Quad alliance or his position on China. Unfortunately, by the time Trump took office, it was already too late to intervene. While he attempted to establish ties with other countries, he was continually blocked from within the U.S. Ultimately, successful foreign relations always start from inside a country, especially in the U.S. India, on the other hand, may see this as an opportunity and therefore embark on this adventure to stay at the forefront of the anti-China front. While I do not think that it's possible, India seems to think that production power will shift away from China. They think India will replace China, offering a new workforce with a population of billions. In addition, in terms of political interests, the BJP-led NDA government may be looking toward the next election cycle, seeking to gather Indians under opposition to China. But please remember China's harsh responses to India over border tensions in recent months. In addition, China is squeezing India by using Pakistan, with which it has a very good relationship. India, in its current form, looks like a sinking human trying to escape the swamp. In addition, China could completely embroil India in internal turmoil if it wished. With its mixed population structure, India is easily affected by internal conflicts. Even without China taking action, India is already fueling discrimination and sectarian conflict through public policies. While China can direct public opinion and discourse through ongoing CCP influence and control over even nominally independent media, even the serials people watch in India differ according to their religion. Muslims watch the Turkish TV series Ertugrul, while Hindus watch Israeli-made Fauda. People's choice between these two series express much more than a cultural difference in terms of the feelings they evoke in people. One of the important details that have been overlooked is that, although it has its own culture, India does not have a deep-rooted state tradition. While European colonial powers created, controlled, and occupied Chinese ports and coastal cities as concessions, China itself was not invaded and occupied. Excepting as part of the Turkish-Mongolian Empire, China has not had to endure the rule of foreign nations. India, on the other hand, has always been under the rule of another nation, except for the India of today. China's unique state tradition in this sense was formed by historical processes. We will see the effects of the difference created by this situation even more in the coming period. Finally, looking at all that has happened, it's clear that China will take advantage of India's collapsing economy and these weaknesses, and they will not hesitate in doing so. China will then move on to implementing the next step of its master plan. We have no choice but to prepare for the ugly things that will happen until November and the great chaos that is certain to follow.